The pen feels different this time. I'm sitting at the same mahogany table in my parents' dining room, the same loan guarantee document in front of me, my brother Jason across from me with that same encouraging smile that doesn't reach his eyes. My mother stands behind him, arms crossed. My father occupies the head of the table like a king on his throne. But I'm different, because I've lived this day before. I've lived the next 3 years before, and I know exactly how this story ends, or how it ended. Come on, Lily, Jason says, pushing the document closer. It's just a formality. The bank requires a guarantor for the business loan, and since I have good credit and a stable job, I say quietly. Exactly! My mother's voice is bright. We're so proud of you working at that accounting firm, finally contributing to the family. Finally contributing. As if the 28 years I spent being their emotional punching bag, their free babysitter, their shoulder to cry on, their ATM machine, wasn't contribution enough. In my first life, I signed. I signed because Jason said it was just a formality. Because mom said family helps family. Because dad said a good daughter doesn't question her parents. Because I was so desperate for their approval, so pathetically grateful for any scrap of warmth, that I would have signed away my soul if they'd asked. The formality was a $2 million loan guarantee for Jason's revolutionary tech startup. The startup failed within 8 months. Jason declared bankruptcy, and because my name was on that guarantee, the bank came for me. They took my savings, every penny I'd scraped together for a down payment on my own apartment. They garnished my wages. When that wasn't enough, they sued. I lost my job because my employer didn't want the distraction of legal issues. I lost my tiny rental apartment. I moved back into my parents' house, broken and drowning in debt. And my family? Jason moved to Singapore for a fresh start, bankrolled by our parents. Mom and dad retired to a beach condo in Florida they'd somehow purchased right before the startup collapsed. Funny timing, that. When I begged them for help with the debt, dad said, "You signed the papers, Lily. You need to take responsibility for your choices." When I asked why they could afford a condo but couldn't help me, mom said, "We worked hard our whole lives. We deserve this." When I suggested Jason should at least try to help since it was his business, they said, "He's going through so much stress. Don't be selfish." I spent the next 3 years being crushed under the weight of their debt, their betrayal, their casual cruelty. I worked 3 jobs. I ate ramen in a roach-infested studio. I ignored calls from creditors and watched my credit score plummet to nothing. And then at 31, standing on the subway platform after another 16-hour workday, I was so tired, so bone-deep exhausted, so hollow. I don't remember deciding to jump. I just remember the train's headlight, bright as a falling star. I remember thinking, finally it's over. But instead of ending, I woke up 3 years earlier. Same mahogany table, same loan document, same family, same choice. Except this time, I know what the formality costs. And this time, I'm not the same desperate girl hungry for love. This time, I'm something else entirely. "Lily," Jason prompts. "You seem distracted." I blink, focusing on his face. In my first life, I thought he looked concerned. Now I see the calculation in his eyes, the impatience barely masked. "I was just thinking," I say slowly. "This is a big loan, $2 million. The business is solid," Jason insists. "I've got investors interested. A revolutionary AI platform that's going to disrupt the entire industry. I just need the bank loan to bridge the gap until the Series A funding comes through." Every word is a lie. I know because I lived through it. There are no investors. The revolutionary platform is stolen code Jason bought off a dark web forum. The Series A funding will never materialize because Jason has no idea how to actually run a business. He just likes playing startup founder on Instagram. And you need me as a guarantor because I'm leveraged on other projects. Jason says smoothly, "Aston, you know how it is with entrepreneurs. All my assets are tied up in opportunities." Translation: he's already buried in debt from 2 other failed ventures, and the bank won't lend to him without someone with clean credit. "What happens if the business doesn't work out?" I ask. The temperature in the room drops 10 degrees. "Lily," My father's voice is cold. Are you suggesting your brother will fail? I'm just asking about the worst-case scenario. The worst-case scenario, my mother interrupts, is that you refuse to help your family and prove you're as selfish as we've always worried. There it is, the knife they have always twisted so expertly. In my first life, those words made me sign immediately, desperate to prove I wasn't selfish, that I was worthy of being loved. Now I see them for what they are: manipulation, abuse, a con. If I'm the guarantor, I continue as if she hadn't spoken, and the business fails, I'm legally responsible for the full amount of the loan. It's not going to fail, Jason snaps, his mask slipping. Jesus, Lily, why are you being so difficult? It's a simple signature. A simple signature on a $2 million obligation. You won't have to pay anything. My mother's voice rises. Why are you even thinking about that? Don't you trust your own brother? No, the word sits on my tongue, sweet as poison. But I don't say it. Not yet. Because I have a better plan. In my first life, I learned something important during those 3 years of hell. I'm very, very good with numbers. It's why I became an accountant. And during my desperate attempts to understand how Jason's business failed so catastrophically, I did a deep dive into the loan documents, the business structure, everything. I found things, illegal things, things that, if I'd known what to do with them, could have saved me. But I was too broken, too alone, too buried under the weight of it all to fight back. This time, I'm not alone. This time, I have something more valuable than money or connections. I have foreknowledge, and I'm going to use it to burn their world down. Okay, I say quietly. I'll sign. The relief in the room is palpable. Jason's smile becomes genuine. He's already spending that money in his head. Mom's shoulders relax. Dad nods approvingly as if I've finally done something right. But I have some conditions, I continue. Jason's smile freezes. Conditions? I want to review the full business plan, all financial projections, a complete breakdown of how the loan will be used, and I want quarterly updates on the business performance. Lily, that's not, Jason starts. Those are my conditions for signing a $2 million guarantee, I say, meeting his eyes. They're reasonable. If the business is as solid as you say, you should have no problem sharing that information with your guarantor. I watch Jason's face cycle through emotions, annoyance, calculation, a flicker of fear. He doesn't have a real business plan. He has a PowerPoint deck full of buzzwords and stolen graphics. Of course, he finally says, I'll put together a comprehensive package for you. Great. I'll sign as soon as I've reviewed everything. Lily, my mother's voice has an edge now. I'm an accountant, Mom. You wouldn't buy a car without reading the contract. This is much bigger than a car. I'm being reasonable, logical. It makes me harder to attack without revealing their true intentions. My father clears his throat. When will you have time to review the materials? Jason can send them to my work email. I'll review them this week. Jason's jaw tightens. He knows he's trapped. If he refuses, he exposes that there's nothing real to review. If he agrees, he has to scramble to create something convincing. Fine, he bites out. I'll send everything tomorrow. I smile. It doesn't reach my eyes either. Perfect. I'm looking forward to learning about this revolutionary opportunity. Jason sends the business plan 3 days later. It's exactly as terrible as I remember. Vague promises, inflated projections, no real substance. In my first life, I was too financially illiterate and too trusting to spot the red flags. Now, I see them all, but I don't refuse to sign. That's not the plan. Instead, I spend the next week doing something I couldn't do in my first life. I call in sick and make some very important visits. First stop, the bank, not the branch, the headquarters. I ask to speak with someone in their risk management department about a potentially fraudulent loan application. The woman who meets with me is named Sarah Chen, and she's exactly where I remember her being. Because in my first life, after everything collapsed, I learned that Jason's loan had been flagged for review, but was pushed through anyway by a corrupt loan officer who was fired 6 months later. 6 months too late for me. I'm planning to be a guarantor on a significant business loan, I tell Sarah, sliding a copy of Jason's business plan across her desk. But I have concerns about the legitimacy of the business and the borrower's intentions. Sarah reviews the documents with the kind of careful attention that tells me she's good at her job. These projections are, she pauses diplomatically, optimistic. They're fantasy, I say bluntly. The borrower is my brother. I've seen his track record. 2 failed businesses in the last 4 years, both ending in bankruptcy. He's currently being sued by creditors from the last venture. Sarah's eyebrows rise. That information should have been disclosed in the loan application. Should have been, I agree. I'm guessing it wasn't. She makes a note. If you have concerns, why are you agreeing to guarantee the loan? This is the delicate part. I need to seem conflicted, not calculating. Family pressure, I say quietly. But I wanted someone at the bank to know my concerns are on record. If this goes south, I don't want to be the only one left holding the bag. Sarah studies me for a long moment. This is highly unusual. Most people in your position either sign or refuse. They don't come in to flag potential issues. I'm an accountant, I say. I believe in documentation. Something shifts in her expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition of a fellow numbers person. I'll flag this application for additional review, she says. We'll need to verify the borrower's representations independently. The loan approval may be delayed. That's fine with me. And Ms. Morrison, if you do ultimately guarantee this loan, make sure you understand exactly what you're agreeing to. A guarantee isn't a formality. It's a serious legal obligation. I know, I say. Believe me, I know. The loan approval is delayed. Jason is furious. My parents are disappointed. They pressure me daily, but I hold firm. I won't sign until the bank completes their review and I'm satisfied with the answers to my questions. But here's the thing they don't understand. I'm not stalling because I'm uncertain. I'm stalling because I'm building a case. During those weeks while the bank investigates Jason's application, I'm busy. So busy. I hire a lawyer, a shark named Patricia Wu, who specializes in financial fraud. I tell her everything, the pressure, the false representations, the pattern of Jason's failed businesses. I pay her a retainer using money I've carefully saved, knowing I'll need it. If you know the business will fail, Patricia asks, why sign at all? Because I need them to commit to the fraud, I say. I need documentation of their intentions and their misrepresentations, and I need to be in a position where I can prove they deliberately deceived me. Patricia's smile is sharp. You're not here for advice. You're here for a co-conspirator. I'm here, I correct, for someone who'll help me make sure the people who try to destroy me face consequences, legal consequences. Then let's make sure we cross every T and dot every I, she says, because when you spring this trap, it needs to be airtight. The bank finally approves the loan with conditions. They reduce the amount to $1.5 million, require quarterly financial audits, and mandate that Jason provide detailed accounting of how funds are used. Jason is livid about the reduction, but accepts because he's desperate. The other projects he mentioned? In my first life, I learned they were gambling debts to some very unpleasant people. He needs this money now. My parents pressure me harder. Family dinners become interrogations. Mom cries about how I'm abandoning Jason. Dad hints that I might not be welcome at family gatherings if I don't step up. The old me would have caved. The new me records every conversation. Finally, I agree to sign. But first, I insist on a family meeting where we discuss exactly what will happen if the business fails. They don't want this meeting. They try every tactic to avoid it. But I'm immovable. No meeting, no signature. We gather again at that mahogany table. This time, Patricia sits beside me. A lawyer? My father's voice could freeze oceans. You brought a lawyer to a family discussion? This is $1 million legal obligation, Patricia says smoothly. Ms. Morrison is being prudent. This is insulting, my mother hisses. What's insulting, Patricia counters, is pressuring a family member into a massive financial obligation without ensuring she understands the risks. The meeting is tense. Patricia asks pointed questions. Jason's answers are evasive. My parents deflect. But everything is recorded. Every lie, every misrepresentation, every pressure tactic. Patricia makes them sign a document acknowledging that if the business fails, they will make good faith efforts to help cover the guarantee. It's largely unenforceable. She tells me this privately, but it gets them to admit in writing that there's a risk of failure. I thought you said the business was solid, I point out when my father balks at signing. It is, Jason insists. This is just Lily being paranoid. Then there's no risk in signing, Patricia says pleasantly. They sign because they're so certain they've won, so confident in their con that they can't imagine it matters. I sign the guarantee. Jason gets his money, and I start the real work. Here's what my family doesn't know. I've spent the last 2 months not just preparing legal defenses, but actively sabotaging Jason's business. Remember the revolutionary AI platform he's building? The one that's actually stolen code? I found the original developer. Took some digging through dark web forums and GitHub repositories, but I found him. His name is Marcus Way, and he's a brilliant programmer who got scammed when Jason bought his code and claimed he'd properly licensed it. I contact Marcus anonymously, provide him with evidence that Jason is using his code commercially without proper licensing, and offer to help him pursue legal action. Marcus is very interested. I also reach out to the investors Jason claims are interested in his Series A funding. Turns out they've never heard of him. When I ask if they'd like documentation proving Jason is using their names fraudulently in loan applications, they're very interested too. Then there's the small matter of Jason's business bank account. The loan agreement requires that funds be used specifically for business purposes, development, marketing, legal incorporation, etc. Jason uses $200,000 to pay off his gambling debts within the first week. I know because I've befriended his executive assistant, a sweet girl named Mika who Jason underpays and overworks. When I take her out for coffee and sympathetically listen to her complain about her terrible boss, she's so grateful for the kindness that she starts telling me things. Things like how Jason is spending the business money on a new Porsche, a luxury apartment lease, and a trip to Monaco. I express appropriate shock. I suggest gently that she might want to keep records, just in case things go wrong and she needs to prove she tried to warn someone. Mika starts forwarding me emails, bank statements, receipts, all the rope Jason needs to hang himself. 3 months after signing the guarantee, the first dominoes fall. Marcus files a lawsuit against Jason for copyright infringement and fraud. The lawsuit is detailed, specific, and includes evidence that Jason knowingly purchased stolen code. The investors Jason named in his loan application issue cease and desist letters demanding he stop using their names and threatening legal action for fraud. The bank receives an anonymous tip about the misuse of loan funds, complete with documentation. And I, the concerned guarantor, reach out to Sarah Chen with my worries. I've been receiving the quarterly updates as required, I tell her, and I'm seeing some concerning discrepancies. The funds don't seem to be going toward the stated business purposes. Sarah promises to investigate. The bank launches an audit. When they subpoena Jason's records, they find exactly what I've already documented: massive misappropriation of funds, fraudulent representations, and a business that was never anything more than a Ponzi scheme to pay off personal debts. The bank calls the loan due immediately. Jason has spent $1.2 million of the $1.5 million on cars, gambling, luxury apartments, and trips. There's nothing left for the business and no business to show for it. He can't pay. The bank comes for the guarantor. They come for me. Except I'm ready. The day the bank officially demands payment from me as guarantor, I'm sitting in Patricia's office with a stack of documents 6 inches thick. Are you sure you want to do this? Patricia asks, though her eyes gleam with anticipation. Once we file, there's no going back. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I say. We file a countersuit against Jason for fraud and misrepresentation. We provide evidence that he deliberately deceived me about the nature of the business, the use of funds, and his intentions. We file complaints with the Banking Commission about the loan officer who pushed through Jason's application despite red flags. We provide law enforcement with evidence of Jason's fraud, including his use of the loan to pay off illegal gambling debts. And then, the piece de resistance, I file a lawsuit against my parents. See, during my documentation phase, I discovered something interesting. That beach condo in Florida they purchased right before Jason's business collapsed in my first life, they bought it 2 months before using a down payment of $300,000. The same week Jason received his loan, my parents received a $300,000 investment in their retirement fund from Jason's business account. They knew. They were in on it from the start. This was never about Jason's business. It was about using the bank's money, guaranteed by me, to fund their retirement and pay off Jason's debts. The business was always meant to fail. I have the bank transfers. I have emails between Jason and my father discussing the family investment strategy. I have my mother's text messages about securing the condo before Lily gets difficult. They thought they'd deleted everything. They didn't know I'd hired a forensic digital investigator. Patricia files a fraud lawsuit against my parents and Jason jointly, seeking to void the loan guarantee on the grounds that I was deliberately deceived by all parties in a conspiracy to defraud both me and the bank. The lawsuits hit like a bomb. My phone rings 37 times the first day. I don't answer. My mother shows up at my apartment screaming in the hallway about betrayal and family loyalty until my neighbors call building security. My father sends me a text. "You've destroyed this family. I hope you're proud." I am, actually. Jason's lawyer contacts Patricia seeking settlement. Jason's scared now. The criminal fraud investigation is moving forward and he's looking at potential jail time for the loan fraud and the illegal gambling debts. He wants to offer you $50,000 to drop the suit, Patricia tells me. Tell him to go to hell, I say calmly. My parents try a different approach. They attempt to claim the $300,000 transfer was a legitimate business investment, and therefore they're innocent parties. Patricia destroys that argument by producing the email where my father wrote, "Once the bank money comes through and we transfer our share, make sure the business account shows business expenses. We can't have anyone seeing where the money really went." In my first life, these people crushed me without a second thought. In this life, I'm watching them drown in the consequences of their own greed. The legal process takes 8 months. 8 months of depositions, hearings, and discovery. 8 months where I sleep better than I have in 2 lifetimes. The bank settles with me. Patricia argues successfully that I was a victim of fraud by all parties, that I took reasonable steps to verify the loan's legitimacy, and that I was deliberately deceived. The bank agrees to pursue Jason and my parents for the full loan amount and releases me from the guarantee. I never have to pay a single dollar. Jason's criminal trial results in a conviction for fraud and money laundering. He's sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. His assets, the Porsche, the luxury apartment lease, everything are seized to pay restitution. My parents face civil judgments for their role in the fraud. The condo is seized. Their savings are garnished. They're facing bankruptcy, the very thing they let me drown in during my first life. They try to appeal to me one last time. My mother sends a letter. "How can you do this to your own family after everything we did for you?" I don't respond. Patricia sends a legal letter reminding them that any further contact will be considered harassment. The silence is beautiful. On the 1-year anniversary of my rebirth, I'm sitting in my new apartment. A beautiful 1-bedroom with huge windows that I paid for with my own money, untouched by anyone else's debts or schemes. I'm thinking about the train platform, about how close I came to letting them win. My phone buzzes. It's a news alert. Jason Morrison has been denied early parole. He'll serve his full sentence. I smile. There's a knock at my door. When I open it, I find Mika, Jason's former assistant. "I hope this isn't weird," she says nervously, "but I wanted to thank you. After everything came out, I was able to file a lawsuit for unpaid wages and hostile work environment. I just got my settlement. It's enough to pay off my student loans." "That's wonderful," I say, and I mean it. "I also wanted to tell you..." She hesitates. "What you did was scary to watch, but it was also amazing. You stood up to your entire family. You fought back when they tried to destroy you. You taught me that sometimes being kind to yourself means being ruthless with people who hurt you." After she leaves, I think about her words. In my first life, I thought being a good person meant accepting abuse, meant sacrificing myself for people who only took and never gave, meant swallowing my pain so others could be comfortable. I thought love was supposed to hurt. But rebirth taught me something different. Love doesn't demand you light yourself on fire to keep others warm. Family doesn't mean accepting betrayal, and sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to be a victim. 2 years after my rebirth, I'm promoted to senior accountant at my firm. I'm good at my job, better than before because I'm not carrying the weight of my family's dysfunction. I start dating someone I met at a professional conference. His name is David, and when I tell him about my family situation, he doesn't pressure me to forgive them or suggest they didn't mean it. He just says, "They sound like terrible people. I'm glad you got away." It's the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. I hear through mutual acquaintances that my parents are living in a small rental in Ohio, working part-time jobs to make ends meet. They tell people I'm an ungrateful daughter who destroyed the family over money. Let them tell that story. The people who matter know the truth. Jason gets out of prison after 3 years. I hear he's working at a call center, living with a roommate, trying to rebuild under the weight of his criminal record and the restitution he still owes. I feel nothing about this. Not pity, not satisfaction, nothing. He's simply irrelevant to my life now. 5 years after my rebirth, I'm having coffee with Sarah Chen, the bank risk manager. We've become friends over the years, bonding over our shared love of forensic accounting and our mutual horror at how close the original fraud came to succeeding. "I still think about your case sometimes," Sarah says. "The way you documented everything, built your case so carefully. Most people in your position would have just refused to sign and walked away." "Walking away would have left them free to do it to someone else," I say. "I needed them to face consequences." "You burned down your entire family to do it," she points out. "No," I correct a bit. "I burned down the people who called themselves family, but treated me like a disposable resource. There's a difference." Sarah nods slowly. "Do you ever wonder what your life would have been like if you'd just walked away? If you'd refused to sign and cut contact?" I think about this. In my first life, I signed and was destroyed. In this life, I signed and destroyed them instead. But what if there had been a third option? I don't think I could have walked away, I admit. Not without the rebirth, not without knowing exactly how much damage they were willing to do to me. I needed to see the monster fully before I could fight it. Do you think you'll ever forgive them? Forgiveness would require them to be sorry, I say. They're not sorry they hurt me. They're sorry they got caught. There's nothing to forgive. Sarah raises her coffee cup. To people who refuse to be victims. I clink my cup against hers. To surviving and thriving. 10 years after my rebirth, I'm at a coffee shop when I see my mother. She's older, grayer, wearing clothes from a discount store instead of the designer brands she used to favor. She doesn't see me at first, and I watch her count change, with shaking hands to pay for a small coffee. Part of me, a very small part, feels a flicker of something. Not pity exactly, more like observation. This is what happens when you build your life on taking from others. Eventually, there's no one left to take from. She sees me. Her eyes widen. For a moment, we just stare at each other across the coffee shop. I wait for the guilt, the doubt, the voice that says I should help her, that she's still my mother, that family is family. But that voice died in my first life on that subway platform. It died, and I was reborn without it. My mother opens her mouth, maybe to speak, maybe to ask for money, maybe to hurl accusations. I turn and walk out. I don't owe her my pain, my time, or my presence. I don't owe her anything at all. 15 years after my rebirth, I'm standing in front of a classroom of graduate students in forensic accounting. The most dangerous frauds, I tell them, are the ones wrapped in love. The family member who needs a loan, the friend with an investment opportunity, the romantic partner with a business idea. We're taught not to question the people we love. Fraudsters know this and use it. A student raises her hand. How do you protect yourself without becoming paranoid? You verify, I say simply. Trust isn't about blind faith, it's about informed confidence. When someone who loves you asks you to take a financial risk on their behalf, they should welcome your due diligence. If they don't, that's a red flag. Another student. But what if questioning them damages the relationship? I think about my family, about the years I spent trying to earn love from people who saw me as a resource, not a person. If asking reasonable questions damages a relationship, I say, then the relationship was already broken. You just didn't know it yet. After class, a student approaches me privately. Professor Morrison, my sister is asking me to co-sign a loan. My parents are pressuring me to do it, but something feels wrong. I see myself in her worried eyes, the old me desperate for approval, terrified of being called selfish. What does your gut tell you? I ask. That she'll default and I'll be left with the debt, she whispers. Then don't sign, I say firmly. And if your family can't respect that boundary, then they're showing you who they are. Believe them. But they'll be so angry. Better angry than bankrupt, I interrupt. Better angry than spending years crushed under debt that isn't yours. Better angry than losing yourself to people who only love what you can give them. She's crying now. I don't want to lose my family. Honey, I say gently, a family that demands you sacrifice yourself for them isn't a family worth keeping. 20 years after my rebirth, I'm wealthy, not from inheritance or luck, but from good decisions, hard work, and refusing to let anyone else control my finances. I use my wealth carefully. I fund scholarships for young people escaping abusive families. I donate to legal aid organizations that help victims of financial fraud. I mentor women who are learning to set boundaries with toxic relatives. Someone asked me once if I ever regret what I did to my family. Every day, I lie. Actually, I've never regretted it once. The truth is this: rebirth gave me a gift, but the gift wasn't the knowledge of the future. The gift was the permission to be ruthless. In my first life, I died because I couldn't imagine a world where I mattered more than keeping the peace, where my survival mattered more than their comfort, where saying no was acceptable even when it made people angry. Rebirth taught me that sometimes the only way to save yourself is to let others drown, not because you're cruel, but because you can't save people who are actively trying to pull you under. My family made me sign a loan guarantee because they thought I was weak, they thought I was disposable, they thought wrong. After rebirth, I didn't just call the loan due immediately. I orchestrated their complete destruction with the patience of someone who had already died once and refused to do it again. They made me a victim, rebirth made me a weapon, and I have no regrets about how I chose to wield it. The pen feels different this time. I'm standing at a podium, signing copies of my book, Financial Fraud and Family Abuse, A Survivor's Guide to Fighting Back. A woman approaches with her copy, hands trembling. Your story saved my life, she says. I was about to sign a guarantee for my brother. Reading your book made me investigate first. I found out he was planning to do exactly what your brother did. I walked away. Good, I say, signing her book. How did your family react? They disowned me, she says. Her eyes are wet, but her voice is steady. And it's the freest I've ever felt. I understand completely. Because freedom isn't about being loved by everyone. Freedom is about refusing to set yourself on fire to keep the wrong people warm. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is watch the people who tried to destroy you face the consequences of their own actions. I lived, I died, I lived again. And this time, I chose myself every single time. That's the real revenge. Not their suffering, but my thriving. Not their punishment, but my peace. Not their regret, but my indifference. They made me sign a guarantee expecting me to burn. Instead, I burned them. And from their ashes, I built a life they could never touch. That's the power of rebirth. That's the power of refusing to be a victim twice. That's the power of choosing yourself, no matter who tells you it's selfish. Because the people who call you selfish for protecting yourself, they're usually the ones who benefit from you being selfless. And I'm done living for anyone's benefit but my own. The loan was called due immediately, and so was my tolerance for abuse. I paid neither. Instead, I collected everything they owed me, my dignity, my future, my peace. The debt is settled, the books are balanced, and I'm finally beautifully free.